With the news coming out today of all the cuts WWE has made today, it sends shockwaves to the internet wrestling community because a lot of these names seem to make absolutely no sense or came off as a humongous surprise. But WWE continues to release superstars that either have large contracts or they feel like they have no use for, could be for certain reasons. So let's get to this first story right here. And it's backstage news on why certain wrestlers were released by WWE today. So we all know the news already dropped. Who got released today? Aleistar Black, Braun Strowman, Lana, Buddy Murphy, Ruby Riott, all released. Santana Garrett as well. All released today. Now, this is the word on the street. Some of these names are people who were looking to get released. WWE has taken a different approach when it comes to this, which makes a ton of sense, right? They release people. If they're asking for the release, they're releasing them. Makes a ton of sense. Why keep unhappy people in the locker room? Makes no sense. That unhappiness spreads and, you know, goes through the entire locker room. They have a bunch of people who are unhappy because they all start talking to each other. They all start conversating and saying why this person's unhappy. It hurts, makes other people unhappy. So it makes a ton of sense as to why, you know, they want to get rid of these people that want to leave. So it makes sense. So who knows out of this crew who want to leave? You know, Buddy Murphy seems like a guy who would want to leave. Makes no sense for him to be there. I don't know why Braun Strowman was released, but he was. And it came as a big surprise. Braun Strowman's booking lately, you know, recently anyways, has been pretty underwhelming. So it makes sense, more sense than any of the others as to why they decided to let him go. Maybe he had some injuries. I know he's dealing with an injury after the triple threat at WrestleMania Backlash. He's been injured previously, taking time off previously. So it could be that reason why they just didn't have much for him. But it's interesting that he's getting released. Maybe he has something planned, and that's why they're releasing him. They can eventually bring him back. Aleistar Black to me is the most interesting one and the one that makes the least amount of sense. But before we get to Aleistar Black, this is news coming out today is only fueling online speculation that Vince McMahon is maybe getting ready to sell the company and offloading some big money contracts. Vince McMahon selling WWE makes absolutely no sense to me why that would happen. Unless he's going to make, you know, $100 billion off of it. It makes no sense to me why he would sell the company. He really obviously doesn't. I don't know why he would want to put that in hands of somebody else that's not part of the wrestling business. Let's say if he was to sell to Disney. What sense would it make for him to sell to Disney? Nobody in Disney knows anything about professional wrestling. So why would it make it wouldn't make any sense. You go from a wrestling promoter to a conglomerate that is Disney, you know, run by whoever the hell runs the CEO of Disney. And what would they even do with it? Would they have Marvel characters showing up, Disney characters showing up? What sense would it make? So I don't see him selling it. Well, the speculation of him selling it to who, I don't know. It has to be somebody in the wrestling business, but nobody in the wrestling business has enough money to buy it. He has his family part of it, so why would he sell it? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me unless he's selling it to accumulate a ton of income for other stuff he wants to do. Or and you know, keeping, but you know, Stephanie, Shane, and Triple H would stay in control of what goes on in the show. It would just be bought by somebody. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense. The whole speculation of him selling it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Why sell it? You sold to Peacock, the network, makes sense. In the States, anywhere else, it's still WWE Network. So why sell it? Because you want to, you know, it wouldn't merge. Who's gonna buy it? NBC Universal? You know, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Who runs wrestling at that point? I think it'll be detrimental. Like, why would a wrestling promoter want to sell to an outsider? It doesn't make a ton of sense. But let's get to Aleistar Black. Aleistar Black, he seems to be the most interesting one of all these releases. Braun Strowman probably second place, but then you have Aleistar Black because of the Dark Father promos, vignettes that have been airing over the past few weeks. He debuts last week. 2 weeks ago, on Friday Night SmackDown, attacks Big E, cost Big E the Intercontinental title in that match, and doesn't show up last week, and then he's released today. This is what he had to say. I'm gathering my thoughts as this was out of complete left field for me. Obviously, we just started the Dark Father character, but this was it. Thank you so much to WWE Universe for allowing me to create and give, you know, my bits myself. They all had pretty much similar things saying thank you to WWE Universe and all that. This definitely comes out of left field big time because of the Dark Father promos and the vignettes. They did it. They just recently did it. I mean, it's been maybe like a month and a half that he started coming back with the vignettes, and you're putting all that work and production into that, time spent, how long it ever took to tape those, and then you have him come out, start a feud with one of your bigger guys on the show, and Big E during IC title, you know, match. So it's your secondary title. It's one of your bigger superstars on the show, and then you're putting him in there to seemingly make a feud out of it, and then you just release him immediately. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. You know, obviously the way he says it, he doesn't seem like he's one of the guys that wanted to leave. Maybe Stroman wants to leave. He was tired of the grind. His body couldn't take it anymore. Ruby Riott, maybe the same thing. She's, you know, wasn't being used really that much. Riot Squad was kind of a, you know, a forgotten thing there. And Buddy Murphy, obviously another one. Santana Garrett, obviously there's two that weren't being used whatsoever. So I understand why they would want to leave and go perform somewhere else that they'd be utilized. So it doesn't make a ton of sense as to why they would get rid of Aleistar Black. Putting that money in there doesn't make a ton of sense. That time put in there, it doesn't make a ton of sense why to release somebody like this. But it is what it is. And we had the rumor, remember I talked about it a couple weeks ago, was Zelina Vega coming back to the company. I guess that's on the back burner now, not happening because her husband's gone. So why would they bring her in? Who knows why they're offloading these contracts, what they have planned. They're going to hit the road soon. So who wants to take this from Vince McMahon, to be honest with you at this point? The ratings aren't that great. And, you know, if he's cutting costs, like to sell it for what reason? It doesn't make a ton of sense. So we go back to the selling of the company. Selling of the company doesn't make a ton of sense. It really doesn't. Why would somebody who's a promoter, a lifelong promoter, comes from a family of promoters with his father? His son obviously has a taste for the business, his daughter as well, and his son-in-law Triple H. They would come in and completely change and overhaul everything. Who would even want to buy professional wrestling at this point? You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. So I don't believe or buy into the whole selling of the company. Who's going to buy it? The only person I can see buying is NBC Universal because they just bought Peacock. They're on the networks of NBC Universal except Fox. So what do you do about that? You have NBC Universal owning shows, and Fox has the rights to SmackDown. So how does that even work out? But Aleister Black, all that money, time invested into a character just to be thrown to the side. We'll see if there's any more cuts coming soon. There's a lot of underutilized talent there they can just get rid of right now. Riddick Moss. You know, they can get rid of Mustafa Ali. They can get rid of Ricochet. Those guys that aren't being used whatsoever. A lot of the women, some of them aren't being used either. So we could see more cuts coming forward. Zelina Vega, there's still no word. She was scheduled to come back. We'll see if she does. Now her husband's gone. Why would she want to come back? We'll see where everybody ends up landing if they continue to wrestle. Braun Strowman is a guy, I don't really see him doing much else. He's already been on pay-per-views, WrestleManias, won a title. What sense does he have? What sense would it make for him to keep like wrestling? You know, maybe take some time off and then eventually come back to the company. Makes sense. We could see him do. I doubt he's gonna do independence. You know, we could see Braun Strowman where he ends up later on. Maybe he goes to Impact, something like that. But I don't really see him doing much in wrestling after this. Maybe he wants to do something else. Could totally possibly be he wants to do something else other than wrestling, and he's done with wrestling at this point. But we'll see what happens. These releases come as a shock to everybody, especially to me, Aleister Black, Braun Strowman. And we'll see if there's any more in the future, and we'll get more word on this whole selling in the company, which I'm not buying. But guys, that's the news and rumors for today. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Nice quick little video from the comeback, a couple days off. So stay tuned tomorrow night for more news and rumors. Friday, same thing, and the SmackDown and AEW Dynamite reviews. Make sure you tune to that. Got some other stuff in the works for you guys. Make sure you drop a like on this one, hit the chair in the corner before it hits you first, and sub to the channel. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.